and I am from Alton, and I have a husband. His name's Matthew. He's an electrical engineer, and what do I do? Oh, I stay at home. I used to be a teacher. I taught at both the Christian schools here and the public schools, and my goal was when I had a kid, I was going to stay home, and so that's what I did. So I've taught for 3 years, but now I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I love it. And I got into herbs. I don't even know how I got into herbs. I've always been interested in how the body works and how it responds to things. My teaching degree is actually in physical education and health because that's as close as I could get to body stuff. And I think when I got pregnant, it just exploded from there because I had a home birth, and my midwife was all about natural things. And so I learned a lot from her, and then after that, I just kind of took off on my own and decided to explore, and so this is what I've explored. I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional, I really don't know that much, but I know the stuff that's on the paper, so we're going to go over those things. And if I can't answer a question, I will try to find an answer for you and email you back or something. I want this to be really relaxed. If I'm explaining something and it's going way over your head, just stop me and ask a question. That's fine. Raise your hand high, because while I'm talking, I'm like slightly nervous, so I might not notice a hand like this, but I'll notice this. Thanks. So we'll just get started. So why herbs? Why do herbs matter? Herbs actually started to not matter at about the 1800s, so the pioneer era. Before that time, herbs were used as medicine. So we have thousands of years of using herbal remedies, and all of a sudden they stopped at about the 1800 mark. And they stopped because of the invention of penicillin, or the finding of penicillin and antibiotics, whereas before we always used herbs to cure different diseases and sicknesses. So basically all we're doing is going back to basics. We're not introducing anything new. Herbs really focus on a wholesome health in the body. Our bodies were designed a very specific way by God to respond to other things that were created during creation. A saying that I like to use is, if it was created in the first 6 days of creation, we know that God called it good. It says so in the Bible. And so we can take that and apply that to all areas of life, including herbs. And we all know that different interventions that the medical system uses today are not from natural means. A lot of them are synthetics. And while they give us a quick fix for a lot of problems, which is fine, a lot of times they don't cure the ongoing issue that's happening, whether it be a disease or a sickness. And so herbs, since they were designed by natural means by God, and so were our bodies, we get along a lot better if we use herbal remedies to cure some ongoing issues that we might have in our health. Herbs aren't easy. It's hard when you're first beginning. There's a lot of terms. There's a lot of different names like eucalyptus and tea tree oil and a lot of different things to keep track of. But if you give it some time, I promise, the uses that each one is good for and where you can find these herbs and even their prices, they will just appear in your mind after you give it some time. For me, the big push for herbs really started about 2 years ago. And so now the knowledge that I have now probably matured at about a year. So it sounds like a long time, but if you use them on a daily basis and research them and just get to know them, it's like getting to know a friend. You know their name and kind of what their hobbies are, and then you start to really build a relationship. Sounds weird and creepy, I know, but that's the analogy I came up with. Herbs actually save you money in the long run. At first, when you look at some of the prices I have up here, I'm not selling anything. I just have the price tag still on here. So, for example, the calcium magnesium from the health food store in Lamar's is $25, and you're thinking, what? But if you think about it, how much is your deductible at the hospital? So if you have a high fever, or your child has a high fever, the first thing you're probably going to think of is to take your child to the emergency room. However, think in your mind how much money that's going to cost out of your insurance deductible. If you have your insurance paid for, good for you. I don't. I have to budget. But to bring down the fever using calcium, that was $25 for this entire bottle, and I only used 2 pills out of it, is a lot cheaper than going to the ER. So it can save you money in the long run. The biggest thing with herbs for me is it's so empowering. It really is. It's empowering to know that you're taking the health of your family and your own health into your own hands, and you can watch it work. Just this past weekend, my husband got back from a trip to New York, and he came home with influenza A, which to us we're like, panic, influenza A, don't touch my kids. And he started to have the symptoms of the fever, and the sore throat started to come on, and I could tell it was going to hit him really hard really soon. But I took the steps that I had learned. I gave him some calcium. We did my herbal tea boost, and he was better the next morning, and it never progressed to that higher fever. The muscle ache stopped. It never did what it was supposed to do. And that felt really good for me to know that my husband could go back to work the next day feeling great. My son and I never got sick either, and it was just wonderful all around. So when you're dealing with herbs, you have to think about educating yourself, do some research, but the easiest way is just to explore. Get your hands dirty, experiment. You can't overdose on herbs. You can't hurt anything. So just do the research and try it out. So I just want to hit a little bit real quick about water. In a natural mindset and a natural lifestyle, you need to make sure that you are drinking enough water. Otherwise, the herbs that you are taking are not going to do you any good, because the problem with your body is most likely you're not having enough water in your body. For example, our bodies are made of 75% water. Your brain uses the most, and then your internal organs use the most next. And so the most common problem is I have a headache. So half the time, what do we reach for? Coffee, because we think it's a caffeine issue. When you have a headache in the front here, you need to first think of water. You do not have enough water in your system if you have that frontal beginning headache. And if you're going to be treating yourself with herbs or anything else, water needs to come first, because anything you do after that is just going to make it worse. So just want to put that plug in for water. All right. What do I have next here? Okay, let's just jump right in, I guess, to having your own home pharmacy. We're all moms in here, and so the herbs I'm going to be concentrating on are related to pregnancy, birth, early childhood, and a little bit into just general adult health. Let's see. I gave you Herbs for Mommies, and it has different remedies for different sicknesses, and we're kind of going to go through that. If you could take a pen really quick. For some reason, when I mailed off this to get printed, I sent the version that wasn't updated, so I have just 2 things if we could add that. Under constipation, which is the first one, could you add prune juice and flaxseed oil? Prune juice and flaxseed oil under constipation. And then under the common cold or flu, could you add 10 drops of eucalyptus oil? Eucalyptus is EUCALYPTUS. And you add that into a humidifier, like the baby's humidifier steamer for their room. All right, and those are the only 2 that didn't get on there. So this is basically my herbal pharmacy at my house, pretty much. I literally just put it in a bag and brought it here. And some of the items that I have are used to make other items. For example, this is beeswax. And I had to hit it on the cement outside because I was using it to make some chapstick. But beeswax is really handy. You don't eat it, but you use it to make salves. You use it to make like chapstick and different things that can be melted down, and it's used as an agent to hold and carry other herbs. So for example, this is my eucalyptus salve, and I made it into a little heart. And you treat it as a lotion bar, and you would rub it on something that needed first aid. But so that is a solid. That right there. So we have salves is a way of bringing the herb to your body. There's a poultice, which is a more wet substance that would go onto a wound, for example. but a salve is more hard, and a poultice is more of a liquid. Other ways that we have to bring an herb to your body is tea, which I'm sure you've all heard of tea. A lot of times they call it, in herbal language, it's an infusion. So if you hear something infused, it's tea. This is a tea ball, and that is how you get loose leaf items to be into a tea without all the junk being in your water. This tea ball is a bigger one. It won't even fit into a coffee mug, but I use this when I make like a 5-cup batch of something. Like when my son is teething, which you'll see in the teething section, I make him a chamomile catnip type tea, and that relaxes him, and he actually drinks that in his sippy cup, and he thinks it's juice. I mean, it's wonderful. I put some honey in it, and he thinks it's juice. But I have the loose leaf particles, and they go in here. You can get the smaller tea balls that fit into your cup. Those are great too. Not sure why I didn't bring that. And then other means of getting it to your body is a tincture. And a tincture is something that is alcohol-based or vinegar-based. And the tincture most times is in like a little bottle. But what a tincture is it is the natural herb. So it's actually growing on the leaf. It's the leaf herb, harvested, so plucked or picked, and immediately steeped in alcohol for a period of time. And what that does is it brings out all of the properties of the herb, but then it magnifies it and it keeps it. So when you're using a tincture, if for religious reasons or whatever you're against alcohol, you probably don't want to go that route. However, with a tincture, they are so powerful, you only need a couple of drops for whatever you're doing. So, for example, when I gave birth to my son, immediately after he was born, the midwife gave me motherwort tincture, which is right here. It's a pain reliever and a blood clotter. And so it helped me immediately stop bleeding, and then the pain from just giving birth was gone. But all she needed to give me was about 6 or 7 drops under my tongue, and that was what I'm up to. But I will be making my own tinctures. I'm ordering a bunch of empty bottles, and I will be making my own chamomile extract, my own lavender extract, things like that. And so you can keep up with that and be like, hey, look what crazy lady's doing now. Which is totally fine because I know I'm crazy. Really, this is my hobby. If you have to have one, this is mine. So anyway, that explains tinctures. Other ways is just essential oil. By itself, it's not a tincture, it's just the extract of the herb. For example, this is tea tree oil, and this is just pure tea tree oil right in the bottle. So that is basically how we get our herbs, and of course you're familiar with the pill or the capsule version. This is activated charcoal. It's used for poisoning and for stomach issues. It's also in your handout, but this is a capsule, so it's the herb or the item, the mineral, all ground up and stuck into a capsule that dissolves in your stomach. All right, so my pharmacy, and this is where you guys will probably need to be keeping notes. I couldn't get this printed off in time either, but it will be on my blog. But here's what I have in my pharmacy. Number 1 for me, most important, is activated charcoal. It's most important to me because if your child has been poisoned, get this in them immediately. The first thing you want to do if your child has been poisoned is actually don't call 911, call the Poison Control Center. And that number is in your handout under poisoning. And right now, get your phone out, and everybody, if you don't have that number, plug that number into your phone right now. I think it's 1-800-222-1222. Okay? That's a very important number to know. Then the second thing you do, if they tell you to, is to then call 911. A lot of times they can direct you what to do immediately because the time it takes to call 911 and for the ambulance to get there, your child could pass away. So poison control in this situation is actually more important than 911. And I think they call them for you. So I think you don't even have to worry about it. Yep, she's nodding. She must know. And what they'll probably direct you to do, echinacea, you might have heard of garlic and echinacea when you have a cold coming. Echinacea is very good. It's an immune booster. That's also elderberry and echinacea are what I put in my tea that I gave to my husband, the immune boosting tea. Witch hazel. Oops, I didn't bring witch hazel. It's at the pharmacy. It's right next to the alcohol, the rubbing alcohol. and the hydrogen peroxide. Witch hazel is an antiseptic. I use it in my baby wipes, but you can use it for cuts and things like that. It does sting, so tell your kid before you do it. Motherwort, again, that's like a Tylenol. Catnip. Catnip I grow, not for my cats, but this is a relaxant. I put it in things when, for example, for teething, when my child needs to go to bed and I need them to sleep, but they're in pain, whatever pain treatment I'm giving them, then they get catnip, and that's the relaxant to help them sleep. Rose hips tea. This is a big one. Rose hips, they look like this, but they've been crushed, and that's what them in the bag. And these are very, very high in vitamin C, so I put rose hips in any kind of a cold or a flu treatment that I'm giving. Basically what I do when I'm making a tea for something, I think of everything that'll treat that symptom, and I shove it all together into a tea ball, like literally, and then I make tea out of it. So it's not anything specific. It's like, well, I know rose hips will cure that, and then I know catnip will cure that, and chamomile, so I shove them all together into a tea ball and just hope it works. It ends up most of the time working. I also have bentonite clay, and you can get that online. That is good for tummy aches as well. You just mix a little bit of water, make a little paste out of it, and then have the child actually eat it, and it'll help calm their stomach. Kind of like Tums, but on steroids. It's great. Fenugreek is for nursing mothers. It helps you increase your milk supply. You can't overdose on this, but you want to have enough that you actually feel like you smell like licorice. Fenugreek. Yep. I don't think that one is actually on the Herbs for Mommies, actually. But fenugreek is important. Like I said, you want to smell like maple syrup, or like your body will actually start smelling like it. That means you've had a good amount. One thing I do want to say, when you go to the store and you buy, like for example, this is vitamin C. What the whole point of herbs, just because you go to the store and like, oh, they have vitamin C, this is sundown, we need to be label readers. For example, vitamin C, it says in parentheses, as ascorbic acid, and then it says that you're getting 833% of vitamin C for the day. That's not true. Anytime you see a vitamin and then parentheses as something, it's a synthetic and you don't want it. So for example, this is not vitamin C. It's ascorbic acid, and you will just urinate it right back out. It's not going to do your body any good. The best way to get vitamins is through extracts, but the best is actually through natural foods that you eat. I'm going to take questions. I know that was really fast. Oh, my blog is called Back to Basics. It is on there. Never mind, it's on there, yay. It's on the back. It's the Back to Basics one. All right, so that's all I have time for. If you want to come up and explore